Greetings, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland, still suffering from laryngitis. I am that soldier. I martyr myself to make this channel for you, adoring viewers. And people are always questioning my Irishness. So this is it. This is proof positive. I mean, come on, not just anybody can buy these cufflinks. I used to have tricolour ones, but not being a nationalist, I prefer the shamrock. Anyway, this video is about some of the differences between British and American English. In Ireland, our version of English is more or less British English. I know some people in Ireland go apoplectic if I say that. I know that obviously we have some slang which is sui generis in Ireland, but broadly speaking, we use the version of English that's found on our side of the Atlantic, not the west coast of the Atlantic. So here are just a few differences I picked up, which is a matter of amusement. Americans often saying anyways, whereas British people would often say anyway, just not pluralize it. Not quite sure why. I suppose that anyways makes more sense because if it's any, there's got to be more than one. Now this one causes great confusion. In a restaurant, I remember asking for the bill, but the waiter said the check. But so what are we talking about here? It's the list of the items consumed and the price and the total. But that's check in the United States, bill in the British Isles. Now, bill can mean paper money in the United States, a $10 bill, where it's a banknote in the British Isles. And the other thing I think about check is, as in when you write a check, because you're going to pay, as in it's like a promissory note. In the United States, that's spelled with a CK on the end. In British English, it's got the original French spelling, QUE on the end, no CK. Well, coming on to some argot, saying fanny in the United States means someone's gluteus maximus, the person's rear, whereas in the British Isles, that's an infantile word for the female generative organ. It's not vulgar, it's just the word that people teach toddlers, so they know how to refer to this if they absolutely need to. But as adults, we don't say that one. All right, well, sticking on such matters, say Americans often talk about their ass, whereas in British slang it's arse, it's even spelled A-R-S-E. And that's another thing, is there are obviously many accents in Ireland and Great Britain, and some of them are non-rhotic, such as mine, which is to say the letter R is not pronounced unless it's word initial. Well, let's take the name Richard. I pronounced the R at the start of Richard, but the one in the middle I didn't. It just extended the A. Okay, so now Americans often say excuse me if they haven't heard what the person said, or sometimes in protest as in they're disapproving of what was said. Well, I remember when an American woman told me about a doctor in London wouldn't refer her for some treatment that she wanted, as in he had an ethical objection, and she told me how she said to him, excuse me, and fixed him with this sort of glower, as though he would just wither up, that he should be ashamed that he wasn't providing this information that he thought was unconscionable. Anyhow, whereas in the British Isles, if you haven't heard somebody quite right or wish them to repeat it, you often say sorry if you're posh. A lot of people say pardon me. This comes into the difference between you and non-you phrases. Way back in the 50s, one of the Mitford sisters wrote this article about upper class and non-upper class phraseology, but I shan't get distracted by that. Well, lift, which is an elevator, and well, lift, it does exactly what it says on the tin, except it also lowers you. But then elevator, what it does, elevate the person, except if it's bringing you down, it's not elevating you. But there we are. Television, obviously in the British Isles, the slang word is telly. Occasionally people saying TV. And in Austin Powers, that's that song, it's from 20 years ago. It's Austin Powers 2 saying, will you make love to me, will you turn on the telly, and so on. And being a Canadian, of British parentage, that guy Mike Myers probably thought it was exceptionally droll, the word telly. What else? Cinema. In the United States, that's movie theatre. And in Ireland and Great Britain, we spelled the theatre with an R-E, not E-R. So we still do the French spelling. Although the American spelling, of course, reflects the way it's actually pronounced. The E is pronounced before the R. It's not théâtre like French. Now, places which mainly sell alcohol for consumption on the premises. In the United States, obviously it's a bar, and the person working there serving the drinks is a bartender. Whereas in Ireland or Great Britain, a man is a barman, a woman's a barmaid. Even if you're being very old-fashioned, saying alewife. But these, I suppose if it was strictly only selling ale, more likely to be an alewife. I don't quite understand this, but I think economy class in the United States is coach if you're flying, whereas for us it's just economy class. What else? Railway as opposed to railroad, right? Everybody knows that one. I've been working on the railroad all the live long day. The Indians say Indian Railways because they got it from the Britishers, and well, as one of the world's largest employers, I suppose the Indians should set the standard for that one. Pavement, which is sidewalk. Well, sidewalk is more descriptive. Pavement, I suppose, means it actually is paved rather than just a dirt track beside the actual road. But speaking of roads, there's the freeway in the United States, whereas the motorway in the United Kingdom. Occasionally in the United States, people are saying highway. Now, I'm not quite sure about this in the UK, but people said there's the Highways Agency, as in a government department to build and maintain these major roads. Or in the United Kingdom, it's rather old-fashioned, people saying the Queen's Highway, or when there was a king, the King's Highway. I suppose it means it's a public road, and one that's maintained by the central government, not by the local council, by the county or whatever. Well, coming on to two-wheeled transport. Bike for bicycle, I think we all know that one. But in the United States, bike might well mean a motorbike. And for us, we often say motorbike. We very seldom say motorcycle, whereas I think Americans might well say motorcycle. Groceries. And I suppose, I don't know what we would say, just go shopping, go to the supermarket, buy food, something like that. And we don't use the word grocery anymore. There used to be green grocers, but they've disappeared in the 80s, as in selling fruit and vegetables, because there's so many supermarkets, they've already got that department for fruit and veg. So green grocers, I'm afraid, have gone to the wall. When my parents lived in Texas, way back in the 70s, a shopkeeper, when my father had paid, it was going out, he would say, "Come back," something like that, "Come back." And my father didn't comprehend it the first few times. And when he actually understood the signification of the words, he thought this chap really wanted him to return immediately, as in he hadn't paid or something. But he was being courteous and amicable, saying, as in, "Please return, I would like to see you again soon," something like that. It was supposed to be a friendly gesture, but it was misunderstood. And there's another one from the southern part of the United States, y'all. And I was surprised when I met a lady from the southern part of the United States who said to me, "Where y'all from?" I thought, but you're only speaking to one person. It's singular. What's the all bit there? But there we are. It's one of the quirks of her code. And in Ireland and Great Britain, temperature is almost invariably quoted in Celsius. We often wouldn't even bother to point out it's Celsius, not Fahrenheit. I've got different 0 points, so I can't convert them very easily. Only a scientific context using Kelvin, as in named after the Irish scientist. So, well, Ireland is completely metric. The Republic of Ireland is completely metric. The UK is largely metric, is in this curious twilight zone of measurements. So not using avoirdupois for almost anything, but for distance, miles, and obviously miles an hour for speed. And then personal height, people sometimes using feet and inches, sometimes using centimeters. So that's that. And of course, we spell meter with an R-E on the end, whereas Americans more sensibly spell it E-R, because the E is pronounced first and the R second. And we certainly don't say howdy, but I know what it is. That greeting, particularly in the southern part of the United States. We don't say ma'am very much. Though curiously, if you're meeting Her Majesty the Queen, you'd call her that, Your Majesty, the first time you spoke to the conversation. If you're to refer to her again while speaking, you say ma'am, because I was speaking to someone. If I was speaking to Mr. Thompson, I would just call him Mr. Thompson at the beginning. I probably wouldn't keep saying Mr. Thompson all the time. If I had to call him anything, I'd say sir or something like that, if I was being super polite. So with the Queen, she's called ma'am after you've called her Your Majesty at the opening of the conversation. So it is ma'am to rhyme with ham and not ma'am to rhyme with palm. Can't remember which film pointed that one out. Ma'am, although it sounds plummier, that one is really old hat. That one went out the window at the time of Queen Victoria. And of course, shopping. We all know what shopping is. And where do you go shopping? Well, in a shop in the British Isles and a shopping centre. Well, that's what Americans would call a mall, a shopping mall. And the person who works there is a shop assistant for us. And then in the United States, it's a clerk. We almost never use the word clerk. And incidentally, though clerk is also spelt with an E for us, it's pronounced with an A. We'd say clerk. Clerk is a version of a secretary. But a century ago, clerks were invariably male. These days, they're usually female. So doing clerical work. So clerk, pronounced like the surname Clark, which has got an A in the middle. And that's another thing, surname rather than last name. Confusingly, we might say family name. We often said Christian name, like my Christian name is George, but of course one can't work in the assumption that everybody's a Christian. Some people belong to other faiths, some people have no religion at all. So that's why Americans are saying first name. So we tend not to say Christian name anymore, we might say first name or personal name. Confusing, I know. Now we rarely say attorney. I know the American pronunciation is more attorney, but like there's the Attorney General, Solicitor General, who are government ministers. But there's a divided legal profession in Ireland, as there is in Wales and Scotland. So we have barristers and solicitors. I shan't be mired by explaining the distinction between the two. Now, we lead our dog on a lead rather than a leash. That's that. And there's a school subject, mathematics. For short, for us, it's maths. Whereas in the United States, it's math. And I used to say that when I went to an American school when I was little in Saudi Arabia, that I started going to school in the United States. Sorry, not in the United States, in the United Kingdom. And it took me a few years to add the S to the end. I was quite stubborn, saying, well, why are you pluralizing it? It's only one subject. All right, I suppose maybe because it's it's Greek, and that's what it is for them, I think. Who's in charge of a school? In the United States, it's a principal, whereas in the United Kingdom, it's usually a headmaster if it's a man and a headmistress if it's a woman. Now you might say, well, let's be gender neutral and just say head teacher. Sometimes we can just say the head. Everyone knows what we're talking about. Or we say heads to mean the head teachers in general. So that's that. There are a few exceptions, schools, which do say principal, particularly in Ireland. Cigarettes, the slang word is fags. It caused faces to fall. One of my friends was in Norfolk, Virginia, in a bar with some naval officers saying, I'm just going to the harbour, see if I can find some fags. You can imagine their consternation. People were not so broad-minded. I'm talking about 20 years ago. Now, in Ireland, and indeed in Great Britain, the word college has got several different meanings. It could be a secondary school, Presentation Brothers College, Eton College, for people up to and including the age of 18. Whereas in the United States, it usually means university or that part of a university which awards bachelor's degrees and no higher. Right, there are lots of, in the UK, there are colleges of further education, colleges of higher education, which aims at adults, usually young adults, doing various qualifications, sometimes degrees, often less than a degree, diploma or a certificate. Now, some universities are subdivided into colleges. Oxford University is divided into 39 colleges. Cambridge is divided into about 30 colleges. So it's difficult to explain. They've got no direct equivalent in the United States. It's not really like the Greek system, but it's something like that. It provides accommodation and they compete against each other, but they're not committed to wild behaviour and raucous hazings, general rumbustiousness and boisterous drinking games. Some of that does go on, but it's not essential to belong to one of these colleges, one of these universities. So I shan't go into that. So the college, the word college has got so many distinct meanings in British English that it's almost worthless. It causes confusion rather than understanding. Coming on to some of the taboo language, like jerk, we will never say that one to be rude about someone. That's a physical action, and it's not the onanistic type for us. Well, governor of a state in the United States, but governor in Cockney rhyming slang, that's working class, London, argot, was just what a working class man would call an upper class man, or gov for short, but that one is probably falling into disuse. Americans sometimes say, I get pissed at them, as in I get annoyed. We wouldn't say that. We would say, pissed off. It irks my nerves, so a young lady from Texas used to say. And obviously, places that sell alcohol, for us it's a pub, short for public house. In the United States, it's usually a bar. We can say bar, particularly if it's a hotel bar, an airport bar, or something like that. So we use either the titles or the names and not both together. Like, let's say take the Queen rather than Queen Elizabeth. What are other examples? Okay, let's say you'd say the Prime Minister, you say Theresa May. You wouldn't say Prime Minister May. You'd say the Taoiseach, or you'd say Leo Varadkar, not Taoiseach Varadkar. With the United States, people tend to use the title and the name together. Rubbish in the British Isles, where it's trash. In the United States, putting it in a trash can, we'd say putting it in the bin. So a mate for us is a friend. Matess, very occasionally people say that. It's said in Australia a lot as well. It's not mating as in animals. Like we'd say pal occasionally, buddy we wouldn't say, or saying cheers, especially if about to drink. Well, I think people say that in the United States as well. Okay, in Irish people say shlonta, literally health. English is the only language I know of. Well, actually, apart from Romanian, they say norok. English is one of the only languages in which people don't wish each other health as they drink. Lorry, that's a truck in the British Isles, though you can say truck if you want. Pudding, that's what you eat after the main meal. Some people say dessert, that's non-you, by the way. Cheeky, as in gently disrespectful, perhaps in a childlike way. It's badinage. And I'm surprised the United States doesn't have this one. I remember it was mentioned in The Patriot, that film from about 2000. Gutted, which means bitterly disappointed. I'm going only into British slang now. Sorted, as in I've resolved my situation. Fancy, I want this one, as a verb in this case. Fancy can be like sophisticated and elegant, but fancy can mean I desire, as in romantically desire such and such a person. Then, about 10 years ago, in London teenage slang, there was sick, which meant good, sick one. That was something impressive. They thought it was good if they said sick. But I don't understand it myself. Gobsmacked. And again, that's from southern England. That means to be stunned, stupefied. Got nothing to say. Your gob is your mouth. And again, that's a faintly vulgar word to say. Smacked as in hit, as if you were hit in the mouth and couldn't say anything. Gob can also mean spit or saliva, but again, that's a rather vulgar word to use. There's no room to swing a cat, or there isn't even room to swing a cat. It's very pokey, well, not capacious, and you'll find rooms in the British Isles are often very small. We say sorry, apologise, even when we're not in the wrong. Well, it comes into politics as well, that one. It's gone pear-shaped, okay? Everything's gone wrong. We often say it's all gone Pete Tong. Well, that's Cockney rhyming slang. Pete Tong rhymes with wrong. I don't know if anybody was named Pete Tong. Americans sometimes say, I'll buy you dinner. We'd say take you to dinner. We wouldn't directly allude to the fact we're going to pay for it. That would be a bit too frank. We don't want to be thought of something a monetary exchange. We live in a flat, but people do say apartment in the British Isles quite a lot. Putting an ER ending on certain words like breakfast becoming brekker, or rugby, sport becoming rugger, not the town or school. They're just called rugby. Old hat, it's anachronistic, and I've mentioned that expression, old hat, a number of times. Then for young adults, lad, or it can be a teenage boy. One thing about lad is it might suggest he's macho, audacious, good at sports, heavy drinking, or it might just mean he's any young man. Or if he's laddish, he's, as I described a moment ago, chick or bird for a young woman. These are not respectful. They're not offensive either, unless you're a feminist. Lag is someone who's in prison. I don't know why. And if they're caught red-handed, they're banged to rights, or they say it's a fair cop, as in you caught me, fair and square. But again, I think that's a bit old-fashioned. Cops, we don't say the cops very much. The other slang words for the police, rozzers, fuzz, filth, pigs, any of those. Of course, in the Republic of Ireland, they're guards, G-A-R-D-S, no U, as in it's Garda Síochána, guards of the peace in Irish, or civic guards. I know in Irish, strictly speaking, they should be Gardaí, as in the plural, but in common parlance, speaking English, we just say guards. Offence, that can mean a crime, like a criminal offence. Bevy, short for beverage, that's a drink, usually an alcoholic one. In Northern England, people often say, pack it in, turn it in. It's like quit it. Stop that. And we don't say stop it already. We just say stop that. Already what? We haven't already stopped it. Already doesn't make any sense to us there. But I realize if you're saying already, you mean you emphasize you want it to cease immediately. We have so many vulgar words of being drunk, like wankered, cunted, pissed, wasted, sloshed, smashed, or in Ireland, langers. Suggest people do it quite a lot. Well, if you like my channel, please donate. Keep this channel alive. Donate to me on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. It's all small letters.